Hi everyone, today we are doing lesson 3.6, which is removing parentheses. So I'm going to show you a couple of different things that you're going to have on here, but the first one involves distributive property. Okay, we've already talked about distributive property. I told you that we would be using it a whole lot this year, but we really haven't talked about it much more than the actual property. So when we did distributive property, we had A times B plus C. And we said that equaled A times B plus A times C. So what we are doing here is we are multiplying the A times everything inside of the parentheses. So we are distributing it out to everything in there. If I had a bag full of candy and a classroom full of kids, I would take that bag of candy and give one to each kid. That means I'm distributing it out to each kid. This is the same thing. I'm taking that A and I'm moving it over to the B to multiply, and then I'm moving it over and multiplying it times the C. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing today in a lot of our examples, and then some I'll be showing you some parentheses where we don't do that. So let's start. We're going to start right away with examples. Okay, example 1. We have 4 times A plus 3B. Okay, so we're going to take our 4 and we are going to multiply it out to each of these numbers. So the 4 times A is 4A, and the 4 times 3B is 12B. Okay, and that's my answer. That's all you had to do to solve this problem and remove the parentheses. So once you multiply them, then there are no parentheses in there. Okay, next example. Example 2. We have negative 2 times 3x squared minus 4x plus 5. Okay, if you think you can do this one by yourself, then I say go ahead and hit pause and try it on your own. If you're not so sure, just hang out. I'll do this one with y'all. Okay, so we're going to take our negative 2 and we're going to multiply it times this term, and times this term. Now remember, when you're multiplying it times the 4x, that negative sign or that minus sign is actually a negative sign. So we can change that to plus negative if you want to change it. Or if you're good and you can just remember that that's a negative, then go ahead and do that. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply. Negative 2 times 3x squared is negative 6x squared. Negative 2 times negative 4x is 8x, and it's positive. Remember, you can be using your calculators if you need to. And negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. So I put minus 10. Okay, and that's my answer. Okay, notice that I stayed going in the same order as inside the parentheses. And so my terms are in descending order like we talked about in yesterday's lesson. So it's x squared and x. And then just your constants always go at the end. Okay, hopefully now everybody's got that. And example 3, we're going to move on to a different type of problem. Okay, so this one is not distributive property, and we're going to talk about why. Okay, so I have 2x plus 5 in parentheses plus 3x minus 9 in another parentheses. Okay, so notice on this one, there's no number in front of the parentheses. So I do not have to do distributive property. In fact, these parentheses really don't mean anything because all we have is pluses and minuses the whole way through. So all I have to do is get rid of the parentheses. Remember, you can only do this because there's nothing in front of them to multiply by. It's all pluses and minuses, so I can just put them together. So now I'm going to just add my like terms like I did yesterday, and I have 5x. And then my constants are 5 minus 9 is minus 4. And that's my answer, 5x minus 4. Okay, so that one was pretty easy, right? We didn't really have to do much. But example 4, which is very similar to example 3, is not as easy. So watch what gets kids tripped up on example 4. Okay, I'm going to have 5x minus 7 in parentheses, and then minus parentheses x minus 6. Okay, here's the problem we have, is this minus sign right here. Whoa. Okay, this minus sign people because it is supposed to be, you are supposed to distribute that minus or negative, remember it's a negative sign, distribute that negative sign out to everything inside of this parentheses because it's in front of that. So just think about it like this. If I was to change the minus to a plus and a negative, then it would look like this. And now that negative sign needs to be distributed out. You can also think about it like a -1 is sitting in front of that parentheses. Okay, so now that I've changed that to a -1, I'm going to go ahead and multiply. Just this part right here, hold on, just this part right here needs to be multiplied. This side over here does not have anything in front of it, so I'm just going to write it out. And now I'm going to do -1 times x is a -x, and -1 times -6 is a +6. Okay, so every time there's a negative in front of a parentheses like that, that's what messes kids up, okay? So make sure that when you get that minus sign in front, you think of it as a negative and you distribute it to everything. Okay, now I can put together my like terms, so I get 4x, the -7 and the 6 is a -1 or a -1. And there's my answer for example 4. Okay, I want you to try example 5 on your own. So I have 4a. Oh, this one's going to have a little bit of complications here. Hopefully some of y'all can get this. I still want everybody to try it, and then we'll talk about it after you've tried it. Okay, so if we were in class, this one I would probably have you work with a partner on so that you could catch what's going to happen on this one. So go ahead and work that one, hit pause, and then come back. Okay, now that you're back, we're going to distribute, you should have distributed the 4a, and over here distributed the 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. 4a times a is 4a squared. Okay, so a times a is a squared. Remember I talked to y'all about that? Was that this lesson? No, that was in the last lesson, where I talked about x times x is x squared. Well, a times a is a squared, so you have to put that in there. Okay, and then the 4a times b is going to give me 4ab. Because they're multiplied, I don't put a multiplication symbol. All I have to do is put them right next to each other, right? Okay, and then on the other side, this one's easier. 3 times a squared is 3a squared, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now, don't say, I'm done, I multiplied everything. You also have to combine your like terms. And the only like terms are these two. So I have 7a squared plus 4ab plus 6. And that's my answer for example 5. Okay, example 6. This one everybody should be able to do and get it all right, okay? So we have 2 times 3x squared plus 4x minus 8 times x squared plus 2x. Okay, here's my little hint before you start, is that minus 8, you need to make that a -8 before you start multiplying. Okay, hit pause and solve the problem. Okay, everybody should be back now. I'm going to go through and multiply by 2 first, by both of these. So that will give me 6x squared plus 8x. Okay, and then on the second one, I'm going to change this to plus a -8 just to help you see that -8. Okay, so make sure that you're doing this times -8. Okay, so that's going to give me a -8x squared, and the -8 times 2x is a -16x. Okay, so I made those negatives here instead of minus signs That's okay. Some kids like to do that, so I'm going to do a problem like that. But if you're good with those being minus signs, you can also do that. Okay, so adding my like terms, I have 6x squared and negative 8x squared. That's negative 2x squared. Then I have an 8x and a negative 16x. That's a negative 8x. Okay, and there's my answer for example 6. Okay, we have two more. Some of these, this next one, example 7, looks really complicated, but it's not as hard as what it looks. Okay, I have 7x squared minus, and then bracket, okay, some of y'all don't like seeing those brackets, but that's the way it is, plus 4y times 2x minus 8y minus 4x bracket plus 5xy. So we're going to do a lot of things here. We're going to do distributive property. We're going to add like terms. We're going to remove some parentheses. There's a lot of things to do. If you think you see this problem and you go, hey, I can handle this, then go ahead and try it on your own. If we were doing this one in class, I would probably have y'all do it as a group, like 4 kids in a group to help each other get through this. But I'll be here for you if you don't want to pause and you just want to work it with me. Okay, so if you want to pause now. If not, just work it with me. Okay, so first what I see on here is a distributive property. We want to work inside those brackets. So we want to work inside these first. So I'm just going to ignore those other ones for a while. So right here, I see a distributive property for these parentheses. So I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to rewrite everything else the same way it was. And then when I get right here, I'm going to start doing my distributive property. So 4y times 2x is 8xy. Make sure you put that xy instead of yx. It needs to be in alphabetical order. Okay, and then the next one, 4y times negative 8y. So that's going to be negative 32y squared because I have y times y. Remember, y times y is y squared. Okay, and then this part right here needs to just stay there. Minus 4x, my brackets, and then plus 5xy. Okay, now before I remove those brackets, because I can just remove them, remember I have pluses and minuses. The problem is I have this minus in front of the bracket. That means I need to distribute that minus sign to everything inside. Or, let's not call it a minus sign, let's call it a negative sign. Okay, I need to distribute that out. I can also think of it as plus a negative 1. So I need to distribute that negative 1 to everything. And when I do that, then I lose those brackets. So I'm going to go ahead and write everything out. 7x squared. I'm going to do the plus sign, so plus. And now I'm going to do negative 1 times everything in here. Negative 1 times 3x is a negative 3x. Negative 1 times 8x squared is a negative 8xy. Sorry, I said that wrong. It's xy. Negative 1 times the negative 32 is a positive 32y squared. And a negative 1 times the negative 4x is going to be a positive 4x. And then I have at the end 5xy. Don't lose some of these terms. Don't lose these ones at the front and the back. Make sure that you're writing them down all the time. Okay, now I'm going to add my like terms. So 7x squared does not have any like terms in here. Oops, I don't know why it did arrows. That's funny. Okay, so 7x squared just going to stay 7x squared. My next one is 3x, or negative 3x. So I do have another x. It's over here, 4x. So that's just going to be 1x, right? So I'm just going to put an x. Then I have 8xy, and over here I have 5xy. So those are like terms. I get negative 3xy. And then the last one, the 32y squared, is just stays by itself. Okay, some kids, so here's my answer. Some kids like to cross through them when they're done. So when you finish 7xy, x squared, you can do that. When you finish the x's, you can go like this and this. And then you know which ones you have left. Okay, last problem. And this one I want y'all to do on your own. We have example 8. And this is going to be 3k times k plus 2 minus k times k minus 1. Make sure that you change, just go ahead and change all the minus signs to negatives to plus a negative. That will help you with this one especially. Okay, hit pause and go ahead and solve it. Okay, now that you're back, I'm going to go ahead and change mine to plus negative, and remember that negative k is a negative 1k. Okay, now when I multiply, I'm going to do 3k times k is 3k squared. 3k times 2 is 6k. And then I go over to this next section, and I do negative 1k times k is a negative k squared, or negative 1. You can write negative 1. And then my last one is negative 1k times negative 1, which makes it a positive 1k. Okay, I don't put ones in front of it, but you can write the ones if you need to. Okay, now I'm going to go through and find my like terms. I have 3k squared and just minus k squared, or negative k squared. That's 2k squared. And then I have 6k and k. Okay, remember, if I just have a k, it's a 1 right there. So I have 6 plus 1. So that gives me 7k. Make sure your variables at the end match up, or they're not going to be correct. Don't leave off the variables, or the whole problem's just wrong. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too much information, just a lot of examples to make sure that you have everything down. Okay, that's it. Thanks.